Iga should put a lot of pressure on Eala, and that's the biggest challenge of the tour.
The world's best player is making headlines with comments about Alex.
Iga will always be a dangerous player.
And on a court, just a few hundred meters away, Eala is in tears.
Alexandra Eala from the Philippines. It has a huge win for her.
Her racket hangs loosely by her side. Moments earlier, she had stunned top 10 star Aryna Sabalenka in straight sets. On court 1 at the Steffi Graf Stadion, Alex Eala stands frozen in disbelief. The racket dangles from her left hand as if she's forgotten she's even holding it. Her right hand covers her mouth. Her eyes fill with tears. Across the net, Aryna Sabalenka, owner of 20 career titles, a former world number 3, and a player Eala once watched on television as a little girl in Manila, walks forward to shake her hand. The scoreboard reads 6-3, 6-4. The match clock shows 1 hour and 23 minutes. But behind those numbers, another statistic is quietly becoming impossible to ignore. This is Alex Eala's 6th career victory over a top 10 player, and her second in less than 48 hours. She slowly lowers her hand from her face. Fighting back tears, she tells the live television audience that she's still in shock. She is just 21 years old, unseeded, competing on a wild card at a WTA 500 event only days before Wimbledon. And the biggest twist of all. Less than 48 hours earlier, she had already defeated world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka, making back-to-back victories over 2 of the sport's biggest stars and announcing herself as one of the most dangerous rising forces in women's tennis.
She's come back after really tough start, so I'd like to play another final against her.
Aryna Sabalenka had already put her verdict on Alex Eala into the public record, not as a reaction to this tournament, but as a belief she had held long before Berlin. That verdict came in her full-length ABS-CBN interview, Born for Center Court, where the reigning world number 1 spoke about the young Filipina with anticipation rather than hesitation. She wasn't simply acknowledging Eala's potential, she was predicting her arrival. That interview is the perfect frame for today's story, because what unfolded in Berlin between June 18 and June 20, 2026, was the moment Sabalenka's private forecast became the tour's public reality. Eala arrived in Berlin ranked outside the world's top 30, unseeded, and still carrying the label of a promising young talent. She left with a career-high ranking, her first Wimbledon seeding, and 2 top 10 victories in just 2 nights. The rankings changed, but more importantly, so did the conversation. For most of the season, the prevailing view around the WTA Tour was cautious. Alex Eala was unquestionably talented, but she was still making the difficult transition from junior champion to consistent professional. Her breakthrough had come in Miami 2025, where she defeated 4 top 30 players, including Iga Swiatek, on her way to a stunning semi-final run. But many inside the sport viewed that week through a very specific lens. They called it an outlier, a perfect storm of fast hard courts, ideal conditions, and overwhelming support from the Filipino community that packed the stands. Before Berlin, she had recorded only 1 career top 10 victory outside that magical run in Miami. More importantly, she had never beaten a top 10 player on grass. Her lifetime record against Czech opponents stood at just 1 win and 13 losses, an overlooked statistic that would become important later. On paper, she was a player the elite respected, but not one they were planning their tournaments around. Then Berlin happened. Not 1 upset, but 2. Not on her favorite surface, but on grass. Not against fading veterans, but against the tournament's number 2 seed one day and its number 6 seed the next. And suddenly, the question was no longer whether Miami had been real. The question became whether Miami had been the ceiling, or merely the beginning. Start with the score, because in many ways the score tells the smallest part of the story. On June 19, extending into the early hours of June 20 in Manila, Alex Eala defeated Aryna Sabalenka 6-3, 6-4 in the Berlin quarterfinals. The match lasted 1 hour and 23 minutes, and it was the first meeting between the two players. Svitolina entered the contest with a 35-9 record for the season. She was ranked world number 8, seeded 6th in Berlin, a former world number 3, and the 2018 WTA Finals champion. This wasn't a favorable draw, or a fortunate opportunity. It was an informed top 10 player on a surface where experience has traditionally made the difference. Eala closed the match from 5-4 in the second set, the tense service game that Hall of Famer Tracy Austin would later describe as the match's defining moment. But even that impressive scoreline doesn't fully capture what she accomplished. Because just 24 hours earlier, she had already produced an even bigger shock. In the round of 16, Eala stunned number 2 seed Elena Rybakina 7-5, 6-4 in straight sets. Rybakina, the 2022 Wimbledon champion, possesses one of the most dangerous serves in women's tennis, and is widely regarded as one of the cleanest ball strikers on tour. Defeating her on grass, arguably her strongest surface, was remarkable. Doing it before turning around and beating another top 10 player the very next day transformed in UPS. Rybakina is the 2022 Wimbledon champion, one of the cleanest ball strikers in women's tennis and a player whose serve on grass is a genuine tour-level weapon. Yet Alex Eala defeated her in straight sets on what is arguably Rybakina's best surface. One upset can be dismissed as a moment. Two victories like that in less than 48 hours become something much bigger, they become a pattern. And here's the statistic that truly matters. Berlin marked Eala's 6th career victory over a top 10 opponent. More importantly, it was only the second time in her career that she had beaten two top 10 players in consecutive matches. The first came during her unforgettable run in Miami 2025. When she defeated Madison Keys before adding another elite victory. That's the last time we'll mention Miami, because this isn't about reliving the past. It's about what happened 15 months later. Eala repeated the feat on an entirely different surface, against completely different opponents, in a completely different tournament. One breakthrough can be labeled an outlier. Two breakthroughs, on two different surfaces against four different top 10 players, begin to reveal who a player really is. Now take a closer look at how she won, because that's just as impressive as the victories themselves. Against Aryna Sabalenka, the Ukrainian fired 4 aces. Eala hit only 1. On paper, Svitolina possessed the stronger serve, especially on grass, where first-strike tennis is often decisive. But the match wasn't decided by the serve. It was decided by the return. According to ESPN's match report and Tennis Channel's broadcast analysis, Svitolina committed 23 unforced errors, while Eala made just 9. Eala won 13 of 22 first serve return points, and 21 of 42 second serve return points against a former world number 3. Meanwhile, she landed 69% of her first serves, a high enough percentage to keep Svitolina from consistently attacking her second serve. In simple terms, Eala didn't overpower Svitolina. She out-returned her. She outthought her. She extended rallies one shot longer than Svitolina wanted, forcing the former world number 3 into uncomfortable positions until the errors came. That distinction matters because, for the past 2 years, the narrative surrounding Eala has centered on her power, a left-hander capable of flattening the ball and overwhelming opponents with pace. Berlin told a different story. It showed that beneath the power lies another dimension to her game: discipline, variation, and tactical intelligence. Those are qualities that travel across every surface, and they're exactly what the most respected voices in tennis noticed immediately. That's why the praise began pouring in before the towel had even dried on her shoulders. Tracy Austin knows greatness when she sees it. A 2-time US Open champion, former world number 1, and International Tennis Hall of Famer, Austin isn't in the commentary booth to manufacture hype. She's there to identify what wins tennis matches. Following Eala's victory over Svitolina on Tennis Channel's Berlin broadcast, Austin summed it up perfectly. She has been so sturdy mentally. What an impressive last game. Down 0-30, and somehow found a way. She served well, mixed up her spins and placement, and made Svitolina uncomfortable. 23 unforced errors for Svitolina, just 9 for Eala. The two most important words in that assessment aren't power or potential. They are sturdy and variation. Sturdy is a word reserved for players whose mental game is already mature. Variation is a compliment given to players who understand tennis beyond simply hitting the ball hard. That's Tracy Austin's evaluation. And even higher up the ladder, the world number one had already reached a similar conclusion. Aryna Sabalenka's ABS-CBN interview, Born for Center Court, wasn't recorded in response to Berlin. It reflected a belief she had held for weeks. The reigning world number one spoke about Alex Eala not as an interesting prospect, but as a player destined for the biggest stages in tennis. That's the validation this story is really about. Sabalenka wasn't reacting. She was going on the record. And now, the rankings are beginning to reflect what those inside the sport had already seen. Despite falling in the Berlin semifinals, Eala climbed to a career-high ranking of around world number 30, rising from approximately number 35 the previous week, and from around number 49 at the beginning of the season. That surge earned her something even more significant. She entered Wimbledon 2026 as the number 29 seed. That's not a minor statistic. It meant that, for the first time in her career, she entered a Grand Slam as one of the tournament's protected seeds. She was no longer the dangerous outsider hoping for a favorable draw. She had become one of the players everyone else hoped to avoid. The balance had shifted. Then, on July 2, 2026, Eala defeated Maya Joint in the second round of Wimbledon to reach the third round of a Grand Slam for the first time in her career. In doing so, she became the first Filipino woman ever to reach the third round of any Grand Slam, another milestone confirmed through Wimbledon's official channels. Just a few years ago, the Philippines had never produced a seeded singles player at a major. Now, it had one competing deep into the tournament. And that's why this story extends far beyond one player. The WTA has spent years expanding its footprint across the Asia-Pacific region, with premier events moving through cities such as Shenzhen and Riyadh, while the global calendar has steadily shifted eastward. Into that landscape walks Alex Eala, the first Filipina ever seeded at a Grand Slam. That's a milestone for an entire country. But there's an even bigger tennis story underneath it. Players who score top 10 wins on multiple surfaces aren't simply catching lightning in a bottle. They are proving their games can TR. She hasn't yet done it on clay, and that's a fair limitation to acknowledge. But the versatility is real. And that's exactly what coaches, scouts, and tournament directors value most, because surface adaptability is often the difference between a player who produces occasional upsets and one who remains a threat throughout an entire season. The room Eala has entered is a very exclusive one. It's the room occupied by the 32 seeded players at Wimbledon. Aryna Sabalenka is there. Elena Rybakina is there. Jessica Pegula is there. Alina Svitolina is there. And now, Alex Eala is there too, not as a wild card standing at the edge of the picture, but as a seeded player with her own place on the order of play. But that room has another truth. Its ceiling is just as real as its entrance. The same week that showcased Eala's remarkable progress also revealed the next challenge waiting for her. Just 24 hours after defeating Svitolina, she faced Linda Noskova in the Berlin semifinals and lost 6-2, 6-4. Noskova, ranked world number 13, represented a familiar obstacle. Before that match, Eala's career record against Czech players stood at 1-12, including a one-sided 6-2, 6-0 defeat to Noskova earlier in the season at Indian Wells. Before stepping onto the court, Eala understood exactly how difficult the challenge would be. VidIQ. Before the semifinal, Eala was honest about the challenge ahead. She described Linda Noskova as a dangerous opponent. She's a big hitter. She's young, but she already has a lot of experience and tremendous power. My last match against her was very difficult, so coming into the semifinals, I hope to prepare well, make some improvements, and show what I've got. She prepared. She showed exactly what she had. She still lost in straight sets. And that's what a true turning point looks like up close. A breakthrough and a limitation, revealed in the very same week. Both are true. Neither cancels out the other. 10 days later, Eala opened her Wimbledon campaign with another straight-set victory, before advancing to the third round of a Grand Slam for the first time in her career. The ceiling hadn't moved. But the floor had. And that's often the clearest sign that a player is genuinely improving. So what's the verdict? Not that she's already arrived. Not that she's destined to become the next anyone. The real verdict is much simpler. The record has been updated, and this time, it's written in ink. 6 career victories over top 10 opponents. 2 of them coming back-to-back, in less than 48 hours on grass. A career-high ranking hovering around world number 30. The number 29 seed at Wimbledon. The first Filipina ever to reach the third round of a Grand Slam. A Hall of Famer describing her as sturdy. And the reigning world number 1 publicly identifying her as a future center court player, before this remarkable week had even unfolded. Now return to court 1 at the Steffi Graf Stadion. The racket hanging loosely at her side. The hand covering her mouth. The tears in her eyes.